a boy saw a bottle cap rolling on the ground. He bent down to pick it up, but just as he was about to grab it, the bottle cap suddenly disappeared. Before the boy could react, the train he was on suddenly accelerated. Under the immense force of inertia, the passengers collided and passed out. When they woke up, they discovered that the train they were on had derailed. The station attendant, Komori, tried to report the incident, but found that the communication button was malfunctioning. At that moment, a young man opened the train car door, and the passengers rushed out in a frenzy. However, instead of seeing modern skyscrapers, they were greeted by a dense forest of ancient trees and towering tombstones. Even their phones had no signal. At this point, Bai Bing, a firefighter, suggested that Komori lead everyone to safety. He planned to head to the tunnel to investigate. Ono, a gym teacher, and the young man also decided to help. The three of them grabbed flashlights and ventured deep into the tunnel. Meanwhile, the train conductor noticed a missing train car and suspected it had been left behind in the tunnel. A rescue team was sent to search for it. As Bai Bing and his group saw light ahead in the tunnel, the rescue team also spotted something unusual. Both groups ran toward each other. However, in the next second, the rescue team found themselves face to face with their colleagues searching in the tunnel, while Bai Bing's group emerged from the tunnel to find not a train platform, but a stretch of sandy terrain. The trio decided to head to a nearby hill to see what they could find. Upon reaching it, they discovered a vast, endless desert surrounding them. They showed the video they recorded to the others, and everyone grew worried. To calm the passengers, Bai Bing borrowed a lighter from Komori and lit a fire outside, signaling an SOS. The young man, however, told Bai Bing that this was unlikely to help. Instead of waiting passively for rescue, he suggested exploring further. He picked up a stick, using it to represent the train car, and explained that the desert they had seen was to the east, so he wanted to head west to investigate. Bai Bing warned him that going alone was dangerous and convinced him to stay. Inside the train car, a young girl, hungry, eyed the food in Ono's bag. She grabbed it and happily walked away, only to be startled when she ran into the young man, who had just been playing around. He picked up the bag to return it to her, but she didn't appreciate it and ran off into the forest. Meanwhile, Ono returned to the train and opened his bag, only to find his food missing. He noticed the young man holding his bag and confronted him. The young man explained that the girl had dropped it, but she turned the tables, accusing him of stealing and claiming he had a knife and blood in his bag, painting him as a dangerous person. Hearing this, the passengers grew scared. Angrily, the young man threw the bag at the girl, telling her to return it to its owner, and then jumped off the train to head west as he had wanted. As he walked deeper into the forest, the young man found a hat and, nearby, a crate of drinking water. Meanwhile, a passenger named Jinmao discovered shocking footage on his phone, clearly showing the girl stealing Ono's food. Jinmao confronted her with the evidence, and she had no way to deny it. The passengers criticized her shameless behavior, and humiliated, she ran off into the forest. Seeing this, an older man remarked that the young man had been wrongly accused. To apologize, Ono and Bai Bing chased after him in the direction he had gone. At the same time, the young man reached the west, where he found a deep chasm. As he turned to leave, he slipped and nearly fell into the abyss. Fortunately, he grabbed a dry branch at the cliff's edge, preventing his fall. Struggling to climb up, he was unable to get a grip on the slippery mud. Just as he was about to lose his strength, Ono and Bai Bing arrived and pulled him to safety. Ono also noticed a backpack near the chasm, likely belonging to a group that had left earlier, and was now probably at the bottom of the ravine. When the trio returned, they saw an older woman scolding Komori, blaming him for the incident. Furious at being held responsible for such an inexplicable situation, Komori lost his temper and nearly attacked her. Bai Bing intervened just in time to prevent a tragedy. Calming down, Komori threw his hat on the ground, declared he was done with his job, and walked off into the forest. Seeing Komori leave, the older man approached a young girl and offered 2,000 yen for half a bottle of water. Her boyfriend, however, demanded 10,000 yen, accusing the man of trying to cheat them. Another woman nearby said she could accept the deal and went to get her bag. The older man quickly handed over 10,000 yen to the boyfriend, who smirked, knowing money was useless in this place. The couple then decided to leave, as they had planned to run away from home anyway and didn't care where they ended up. Realizing he was now free, the older man gave his valuable jewelry to a stranger and ran off into the forest without looking back. Seeing him leave, the others also began to scatter, searching the forest for water and food. The young couple reached the chasm and, in despair, considered ending their lives. Just then, Bai Bing's voice called out, pleading with them to live, as death would mean losing the freedom they sought. Moved by his words, the girl convinced her boyfriend to return with her. On their way back, the boyfriend found a beer can in a tree crevice. Meanwhile, the older man reached the chasm and spotted a tall tower in the distance. He returned to the train, pulled out a newspaper, and realized the tower was the Tokyo Flower Blossom Tower, set to be completed in 2026. The woman who received the beer can was shocked to see its production date, 2026. A man with glasses, overhearing this, realized they had traveled 30 years into the future. He held a genetically modified plant, which he said would take at least 30 years to cultivate, as proof. Hearing this, the young man wasn't excited. Even if this was the future, it didn't matter to him because they were stuck here with no water or food. How could they survive? This train, originally bound for the city center, had an accident while entering a tunnel, transporting hundreds of passengers to a future world with no signal, water, or food. The east was an endless desert, the west a 100-meter cliff, and even Mount Fuji was submerged in seawater. 2 days had passed, and no rescue had arrived. To survive in this mysterious future world, the young man shared that he had found drinking water. Since it was far from the train, he took 2 passengers with him to retrieve it. After they left, Ono suggested that everyone share their resources to ensure fairness and mutual survival. Bai Bing agreed, noting that since rescue hadn't arrived, they needed to prepare for a long-term stay and secure enough food and water. When the young man and his group reached the water's location, they found the crates gone. Furious, he returned to the train, convinced the thief was among them. Despite his accusations, no one confessed. Ono reported that their collected food was minimal, and they would soon starve or die of thirst. Ignoring this, the young man vowed to catch the thief by standing guard all night, suspecting they would sneak out to drink. But by morning, no one had left the train. Bai Bing suggested exploring the north, and another passenger, Lee Conan, noted that the abundance of plants meant water was likely nearby. Determined not to die, the 4 headed north. Shortly after, the older man excitedly ran out of the train to a hidden spot in the forest, revealing himself as the water thief. As he prepared to drink, he heard a noise behind him. Turning, he saw Komori. With a menacing look, the older man approached, and Komori, terrified, fell to the ground. A moment later, a scream echoed through the forest. Meanwhile, in the northern forest, the young man spotted a frog. Seeing his wet hands, the group realized water was near. They quickened their pace and soon reached a steep cliff. The young man noticed watermarks on the rocks, confirming a water source above. But how could they climb the sheer cliff? Back at the train, the older man returned with the water, but demanded items in exchange for it. Jin Mao, thinking he was joking, reached for a bottle, only to be startled by the older man's aggression. The young girl criticized his behavior, and he turned on her. Just then, the young man returned, grabbed the older man by the collar, and threw him to the ground, threatening him with scissors. Bai Bing arrived in time to stop a tragedy, ensuring everyone got a bottle of water while securing the rest. A female passenger, overjoyed, cried as she drank, never imagining plain water could taste so good. Lee Conan, more rational, advised sipping slowly to ration it. Seeing everyone revitalized, Bai Bing felt relieved. The next day, he brought tools to the cliff, and with help, climbed up, finding the water source. As he filled containers, a piercing wind howled above. Reaching the peak, he saw a terrifying sight. A vast ocean stretched behind the cliff, with Mount Fuji faintly visible through the mist. Bai Bing recorded the scene, and the passengers were stunned. How had the world changed so drastically in 30 years? The young man speculated it could be due to a war, a catastrophe, or a mysterious virus, leaving them as the only survivors. The group grew emotional, missing their families, and for most, it was a sleepless night. Meanwhile, the older man sang joyfully in the forest, until a tablet fell from the sky, hitting his head, the same tablet that had disappeared from the train. Looking up, he was stunned by 2 vibrant auroras spanning the sky. Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind, and when he turned, he was so terrified, he nearly lost his soul.